Everybody hear me all right? Good deal. Also, I gotta go back and forth and move the slides, but make sure get out of your way so that you can see the screen and everything all right. So, I'm going to talk about fire, and I am going to talk about my biases. You know, that's what we have in life, isn't it? Is we have biases. We probably have biases. We're always biased and everything. And so, my biases are about fire and about the importance of it. And that's kind of what I want to talk to you about, is the importance of fire, and kind of go back with a little bit of history of it, and why a lot of times we believe the way we believe about fire, and hopefully dispel some myths about it, and then show some stuff about what Oklahoma used to look like, and then what we can do to change it with fire and stuff like that. And again, I try to be as informal as I can, and if you have any questions at any time, man, please raise your hand, interrupt me, discuss something, answer questions that you got at any time, so no problem with that. So with that, we'll kind of get going and look at it. So, you know, if you think back, a lot of people think that lightning was the big culprit for a lot of fires historically. But if you think about lightning, you think about the amount of lightning fires that have occurred currently, not a lot. But also the biggest thing is, what typically happens, especially in this part of the world, when we do have lightning storms? What's always associated with it? Moisture. You got that. Again, I've found places out several times, up to 2 or 3 times in the last 30 years. I found places over in our research station and things like that where we've had lightning strikes and it's started a fire. But it never burned anything but maybe a quarter the size of this room because it got put out. Didn't even know it happened until months later. And so if you look at it, fire was important. It was a form of ignition, but it wasn't what we thought. And a lot of times we don't think about it. The Native American impact, the human part of fire is always what was there. You know, again, you got to think about it. As humans, we always are going to manipulate the land we live and work on. We still do to this day, don't we? We're always manipulating things. If you think back to what did they have to use to manipulate land? They had fire. And they used it a lot. And again, they used it for all kinds of things, again, to attract game, to drive game, to clear areas out so they could farm it. They used it for warfare. You know, they used it to burn areas to know they could come back later and harvest certain foods. They knew when to do it for certain crops and different things that they ate, all kinds of stuff. So there's all kinds of records of that and what they do. And you know, the thing is, there's lots of historical quotes about what Native Americans thought about what European man did when we moved in here. Was in that, you know, and again, a lot of times, so, you know, we always have this connotation that wildernesses are pristine, people, we don't want to touch those and do that. Native Americans, the wilderness to them was something that that was a wilderness, but wilderness was a negative connotation because you didn't do anything to manipulate it or make it better. You know, and one of the quotes here from the tribe in California, the white man should have run this country and turned it back into a wilderness. He took fire out of the picture. You know, into something that can't be used or can't be manipulated. And the fire was important. Again, there was a lot of fire use that went on through there. But then if you look at it, so it's almost like a tale of two continents. You have European man, and then you have Native Americans and North America. Fire was important early on. And then as European man became civilized and settled down into communities and became more agrarian type of society, fire was frowned upon because it had a lot of negative consequences of what happened. So again, if you think about it, what were most of the buildings or most of the villages and houses and homes made of at that time period? Wood, straw, highly flammable. Also, they were always close-knit communities surrounded by a wall to keep the bandits out. and to live safe. And so if one fire started, and you got problems, didn't you? So fire was always frowned upon. Also, fire was looked upon as evil. You know, witchcraft, rituals, things like that. So, you know, fire had a lot of, you know, evil things, bad connotations, bad things that went on about it. And it was really rough in what they could look at. Again, towns were made of that. There was actually a Latin term in medieval England that renters could rent a house, and it was usque ad premium combustium. And what that meant was you could rent this place until it burned down, because it was going to burn down. That was just a given. It was going to burn up. So you could have it until it burned down, and then we'll have to build another. And then again, you look at it, even in, so like in Russia, it was shown here, the average Russian village burned down every 20 to 30 years. And consequently, if you looked at historical fire scars in the forests around there, that was about how often you had big fires with about every 20 to 30 years that did that. You know, we talk about Rome, you know, we go back through history and we hear, Nero fiddled while Rome burned. You know, that was the end of the Roman Empire. Well, if you look back, there was actually 40 significant fires in Rome from 31 BC to 410 AD that were historically written down, where big chunks of the city were burned up. So fire was always looked back. And again, so even back then, laws were enacted. One of the first laws I could find was 281 BC. They banned wooden shingles in certain areas. 1200 AD, and this was England, they laid down rules about placement of your flammable materials around homes in the community. So you couldn't stack wood in certain areas, you couldn't stack straw in certain areas. They placed tubs of water strategically around the town, kind of had their bucket brigade type stuff. So again, they had fire watch duties and things like that. So again, that's been going on for a long time. And again, you think back at some of the words, and again, fire began to get a bad name, bad rap on everything that it did. 871 enacted fire law to prevent spread of fire. So then, in Oxford,